The lawyer's smile confused me. My stepmother had just stood up, clutching what she claimed was my father's final wish to erase me from his will entirely. And Daniel Whitaker, my dad's attorney of 20 years, just smiled. Not the polite kind, the kind that knows something you don't. "Before you continue, Veronica," he said quietly, sliding a locked steel briefcase across the mahogany table, "I need to inform everyone in this room that Graham Bennett anticipated this exact moment." The air turned cold. My name is Nora Bennett, and for 15 years I watched my stepmother rewrite my existence. She didn't just take my father's attention, she surgically removed me from his world. Family dinners became adults only. Business events? You wouldn't understand the industry, sweetheart. My college graduation? He sent flowers with a card signed by his assistant. I stopped fighting after a while. I built my own life, my own career. I stopped calling, stopped hoping. But sitting here now, 3 days after burying the man who raised me, I realized something. Silence doesn't mean surrender. Veronica's perfectly manicured hand froze mid-gesture, her codicil hanging in the air like a threat she could no longer deliver. Behind her, her sister Margaret shifted uncomfortably. Her cousins, vultures I'd met twice, suddenly looked uncertain. "What briefcase?" Veronica's voice cracked, just slightly, just enough. Daniel clicked it open. Inside sat a single USB drive, a handwritten letter sealed in plastic, and a small brass key with a tag that read, "For Nora, in case Veronica speaks first." "Your father," Daniel said, his eyes locking onto mine for the first time since I'd entered the room, "recorded everything." And that's when I realized my father hadn't forgotten me. He'd been gathering evidence. Daniel inserted the USB into his laptop without another word. Veronica lunged forward. "You can't just sit down." His voice didn't rise, but the authority in it made her freeze. "Unless you'd like me to call the state bar and explain why you're attempting to suppress a testator's final recorded testimony." She sat. The screen flickered to life, and there he was, my father, Graham Bennett, sitting in this exact conference room, but thinner, grayer. The cancer had already started eating him alive, but his eyes, those sharp, calculating eyes that built a logistics empire from nothing, were clear. "If you're watching this, Nora," his voice crackled through the speakers, and I felt my throat tighten. Then Veronica did exactly what I knew she would. Margaret gasped, Veronica's face drained of color. "For the record," my father continued, adjusting his position with a wince, "today is March 8th, 2024. I am of sound mind, witnessed by attorney Daniel Whitaker and Dr. Sarah Chen, my oncologist. What I'm about to say is legally binding testimony recorded in accordance with California Probate Code Section 6110. He paused, letting that sink in. "Veronica, if you're in this room right now holding some last-minute codicil, I want you to know I wrote it, I signed it, I had it notarized, and it's completely fake." The room exploded. "That's impossible!" Veronica shot up again, her composure shattering. "I watched him sign it. His doctor was there, his nurse." His nurse, my father's voice cut through her panic like a blade, was actually a notary I hired specifically to make you believe that document was real. Dr. Patterson, the man you thought was overseeing my care toward the end, retired actor. Award-winning, actually. I couldn't breathe. "You see, Veronica, I needed to know for certain. I needed proof of what you'd been doing all these years. So I gave you exactly what you wanted. A dying man, isolated from his daughter, completely under your influence. And you performed beautifully." Daniel pressed pause. "There's 4 hours of this," he said, looking directly at Veronica, "unless you'd like the full screening." Veronica's lawyer, a thin man named Porter who'd been silent until now, leaned forward. This is entrapment. This entire recording could be challenged. It's not entrapment when someone volunteers to commit fraud. But please continue that line of thinking. I'm recording this meeting too." Porter went silent. Daniel clicked forward. The timestamp jumped to 1:47:22. My father's face filled the screen again, but this time he looked directly into the camera, directly at me. "Nora, sweetheart, I'm sorry." 2 words. That's all it took. I felt the tears come before I could stop them. "I know I failed you. I know I let her push you away, and I know you probably hate me for it. You should. But I need you to understand, I never stopped watching. Every promotion at Harborline Dynamics that you earned without ever using my name, every article you published, every time you built something from nothing, just like I taught you." He smiled, and it was the first real smile I'd seen from him in 15 years. "You became everything I hoped you'd be." And she tried to take credit for it. The video froze on his face. Daniel closed the laptop. "Now," he said, pulling out a document 3 inches thick, "let's read the real will." Veronica's hands trembled as she tried to smooth down her Hermes scarf. For 15 years, she'd been untouchable, composed, the perfect widow in waiting who'd positioned herself as Graham Bennett's savior, his caretaker, his everything. Now she looked like someone who'd just watched the floor disappear. Daniel began reading. "I, Graham Michael Bennett, being of sound mind and body, do hereby revoke all previous wills and codicils." The document dated March 15, 2024, which my wife Veronica believes to be authentic, is a deliberate fabrication created to document her intentions and actions. Porter started packing his briefcase. Veronica grabbed his arm. "You're not leaving?" "Yes, I am." He pulled free. "I don't represent fraud cases, especially ones this well documented." The door clicked shut behind him. Margaret, Veronica's sister, suddenly found her voice. "I didn't know. Whatever she did, I didn't—" "Shut up, Margaret." Veronica's mask cracked completely. The polished corporate wife vanished, replaced by something raw and desperate. "They can't prove anything. It's his word against—" "Actually," Daniel interrupted, pulling another USB from the briefcase, "it's your words, your emails, your text messages, your conversations with your sister about managing Graham's relationship with his daughter, your documented attempts to isolate him, and, my personal favorite, your discussions with elder care attorney Richard Moss about conservatorship options." I straightened. "Conservatorship? Oh, you didn't know?" Daniel's expression darkened. 6 months before your father's diagnosis, Veronica began building a legal case to have him declared mentally incompetent. She had doctors lined up, testimony prepared, the whole infrastructure ready to activate the moment he showed any signs of cognitive decline. The cancer found him first. She must have thought that was even better. "The real will," Daniel continued, "is quite straightforward. The primary estate, including the family home, all investment accounts, and controlling shares in Bennett Logistics Holdings, transfers entirely to Nora Bennett." Veronica made a sound like a wounded animal. "Veronica Voss receives a one-time payment of $500,000, the Tesla in the garage, and any personal items she brought into the marriage, provided they can be verified with receipts." 15 years, Veronica whispered. 15 years I stood by him. I managed his household. I hosted his clients. "You isolated his daughter," I said quietly. It was the first time I'd spoken since the video started. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw something that might have been guilt. Then it hardened. "You left," she hissed. "You stopped trying. You stopped fighting for him." "Because you made it impossible," the words exploded out of me. "Every time I reached out, you were there. Every Christmas, every birthday, every attempt I made, you blocked. You had him convinced I'd been abandoned when I was being shut out." "Nora,"
Daniel's voice cut through my anger. "There's more." He slid a folder across the table. Inside were bank statements, dozens of them. "Your father has been depositing money into a trust account in your name for the past 12 years, every month without fail, even when Veronica told him you didn't need it, didn't want it, would probably just waste it. The trust balance showed $4.7 million. He never stopped taking care of you," Daniel said softly. I couldn't stop the tears anymore. Behind me, Veronica stood abruptly, her chair screeching against hardwood. "This isn't over." But her voice said it was.
"Sit down, Veronica." Daniel's command froze her halfway to the door. "We haven't discussed the key yet." My eyes dropped to the small brass key still sitting in the briefcase, its tag catching the late afternoon light. "For Nora, in case Veronica speaks first." "What key?" Veronica's voice had lost its edge, replaced with something that sounded almost like fear. Daniel lifted it carefully, as if it were evidence in a criminal trial, which I was starting to realize it might become. "Your father maintained a private storage unit that no one knew about," Daniel explained, turning to me. "Not his accountants, not his business partners, and certainly not his wife." "That's illegal." Veronica grasped at anything now. "Marital assets have to be disclosed." "The unit was purchased in 1997, 11 years before he met you, and continuously maintained under a trust established when Nora was born. Legally, you have no claim to its contents." He placed the key in my palm. It was warm from his hand, solid, real. "What's in it?" I asked. "I don't know," Daniel admitted. "Your father never told me. But 3 weeks before he died, he added a clause to his will specifically about that storage unit. He said, and I quote, 'If Veronica attempts to contest this will or harm my daughter's inheritance in any way, the contents of Unit 247 are to be delivered directly to the district attorney's office.'" The room went silent. Margaret, who'd been shrinking into her chair, suddenly looked at her sister with horror. "Ronnie, what did you do?" "Nothing." But Veronica's face told a different story. "This is ridiculous. Graham was paranoid at the end. The medication made him lucid enough to hire 3 different private investigators," Daniel interrupted, pulling out another folder. This one was thicker. "All of whom were tasked with documenting your activities over the past 5 years. He opened it. Inside were surveillance photos. Veronica at restaurants with a man I didn't recognize. Veronica entering a luxury condo in downtown Seattle. Veronica at a jewelry store purchasing items that definitely weren't in my father's credit card statements. "Meet Richard Valdez," Daniel said, tapping one of the photos. "Veronica's boyfriend of 4 years. Interesting guy. He's got a background in estate planning and a criminal record for elder financial abuse in Oregon. Served 18 months. I stared at the photos, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. She'd been cheating on my dying father with a convicted con artist while simultaneously trying to cut me out of his will. Graham knew about Richard for 3 years. He knew about the condo Veronica was paying for with money siphoned from household accounts. He knew about the business trips that were actually weekends in Vancouver. He documented everything. Margaret, who'd been shrinking into her chair, suddenly stood up abruptly. "I need to leave, right now." "Sit down, Margaret." Daniel's voice was steel. "You're mentioned in the investigative reports too, specifically the section about kickbacks from Harborside Medical Supply." Margaret collapsed back into her chair. "Your father," Daniel said, turning back to me, "spent the last 3 years of his life building an airtight case, not just for the will, for potential criminal charges, wire fraud, elder abuse, embezzlement.
The DA has been waiting for his death to open an investigation based on his testimony. He pulled out one final document. This is a criminal referral your father signed 2 months before he died. It's already been filed. Detectives will likely want to speak with you, Veronica, within the next 72 hours. Veronica's perfect composure shattered completely. You can't, she whispered. Daniel smiled. Watch me.
Veronica lunged for the briefcase. Daniel was faster. He snapped it shut and held it against his chest, his other hand already reaching for his phone. Security is right outside, he said calmly. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. She stopped, breathing hard, her silk scarf askew. For the first time since I'd known her, Veronica Voss looked small. How much? Her voice cracked. How much to make this go away? I felt sick. You think this is about money? I couldn't keep the disgust from my voice. You stole 15 years from me. You poisoned my father against me. He was poisoned against you long before I came along, Veronica snapped, and for a moment, the real her broke through. You want to know the truth, Nora? Your father was relieved when you stopped calling. The words hit like a physical blow. Daniel stood. Mrs. Voss, I strongly advise— No, Veronica cut him off, her eyes locked on mine. She wants to play victim? Let's talk about truth. Graham Bennett was a workaholic who barely remembered his daughter's birthday. When I met him, he couldn't tell me what grade you were in. He missed your high school graduation for a supplier meeting in Taiwan. I knew all of this, but hearing it from her mouth made it real in a way memory couldn't. I didn't push you out, Nora. I just stopped reminding you existed. And you know what? He didn't notice. Silence. Then Daniel pressed a button on the recording device still running on the table. Thank you for that confession, he said quietly, especially the part about stopping reminders. That's textual evidence of deliberate alienation of affection, which, in California, can constitute emotional abuse under elder law. Veronica's face went white. You're still recording? Never stopped. Daniel ejected a small disc and held it up. And before you think about legal challenges, remember, you just admitted, on the record, to intentionally isolating a vulnerable adult from his family. That's not going to play well. Margaret found her voice again, small and scared. Ronnie, stop talking, please. But Veronica was past stopping. The dam had broken. You want to know what's else in that storage unit? She laughed, bitter and sharp. Letters, dozens of them. Letters from Graham that Graham never opened. Birthday cards, Christmas cards. I'd find them in his office, stuffed in drawers, tossed in trash cans. He didn't care, Nora. I didn't have to hide you. You were already invisible to him. The cruelty was designed to wound, and it did. But then I remembered something. If he didn't care, I said slowly, why did he deposit money into my trust every single month? Why did he hire investigators to protect me? Why did he record a 4-hour video explaining everything? Veronica's expression faltered. Why would he create an elaborate sting operation to catch you if I was so invisible to him? Daniel pulled out another document. This one I recognized as my father's handwriting. This is a letter Graham wrote to Nora 6 months before his death. He instructed me to read it only if Veronica confirmed certain behaviors, which she just did. He cleared his throat and began. My dearest Nora, if you're hearing this letter, it means I successfully gathered enough evidence to protect you. It also means Veronica showed her true nature. I'm sorry I made you doubt my love. I never stopped loving you. I just needed her to believe I had. The words hung in the air. Veronica's last weapon, my doubt, evaporated. It was a trap. The whole thing. He was protecting me the entire time. Daniel nodded, and she walked right into it. The storage facility was in Tacoma, 40 minutes from the law office. Daniel drove. I sat in the passenger seat, the brass key clutched in my hand, watching Seattle disappear in the rearview mirror. Veronica hadn't come. After her confession, she'd left with Margaret, her lawyer's parting words still echoing, "Don't leave the state." "You okay?" Daniel asked. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. The facility appeared around a bend, a sprawling complex of identical orange units stretched across several acres. Daniel parked near Building C and checked his phone. Unit 247, should be down this row. We walked in silence, past units filled with furniture, old files, forgotten lives. The key felt heavier with each step. Unit 247 sat at the far end, distinguished from its neighbors only by a slightly newer padlock. "Your father had this unit for 27 years, Daniel said. He paid for it annually, always in cash, always in person. Even when he was sick, he made the trip." I slid the key into the lock. It turned smoothly. The door rolled up with a metallic screech, revealing darkness. Daniel found a light switch. Fluorescent tubes flickered to life, and I stopped breathing. The unit wasn't large, maybe 10 by 15 feet, but every inch was organized with the precision my father brought to everything. Filing cabinets lined one wall, each drawer labeled with years, 1997 to 2000, 2001 to 2005, and so on. A small desk sat in the corner with an old desktop computer still plugged in to a power strip. And covering the opposite wall? Photographs. Hundreds of them. Me at my college graduation, taken from a distance. Me at my first day at Harborline Dynamics, walking into the building. Me at a coffee shop, laughing with friends. Me accepting an award at an industry conference. Every major moment of my adult life documented and displayed like a gallery. "He was there," I whispered. "He was at all of them." Daniel moved to the filing cabinets and opened the first drawer. Inside were manila folders, each meticulously labeled. He pulled one out. Nora, college application essays. Another, Nora, performance reviews 2015 to 2020. Another, Nora, medical records with permission. "He kept everything," Daniel said, his voice filled with something between awe and sadness. "Every report card, every award, every article you published. This isn't just documentation, Nora. This is a father who couldn't be present but refused to miss anything." I moved to the desk. On it sat a leather journal, worn from use. I opened it. My father's handwriting filled every page. March 3rd, 2015. Saw Nora present at the marketing summit today. Stayed in the back. She didn't see me. She's brilliant, confident, everything I hoped she'd become. Veronica thinks I was at a doctor's appointment. I let her believe it. June 12th, 2018. Nora got promoted to senior director. I sent flowers anonymously. Veronica asked why I wasn't upset that Nora never calls anymore. I didn't tell her about our monthly emails through Daniel. Some things she doesn't need to know. December 25th, 2020. Veronica made her annual speech about how sad it is that my daughter abandoned me. I nodded and agreed. Then I transferred an extra $50,000 into Nora's trust. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. The entries went on for years, dozens of them, hundreds. A chronicle of a father who loved his daughter from the shadows because showing that love openly would have tipped his hand too soon. Why? The word came out broken. Why did he let me think he'd forgotten me? Daniel closed the filing cabinet gently. "Because," he said, "the moment Veronica knew your father still cared, she would have weaponized it. She would have used you to control him. By pretending indifference, he protected you from becoming leverage." I sank into the desk chair,
journal clutched to my chest. He sacrificed our relationship to keep me safe. No, he corrected softly. He sacrificed the appearance of your relationship. The relationship itself never ended.
Daniel booted up the old desktop computer. It hummed to life, its fan whirring in the quiet storage unit. The screen flickered, displaying a simple password prompt. I knew what to try. I typed Nora 1997, the year I was born. The desktop loaded. There was only one folder, correspondence. Inside were email threads, hundreds of them, all between an address I didn't recognize, gb.private.2012@protonmail.com, and my personal email. Wait, I said, scanning the dates. These can't be... I never emailed him from this account. I lost touch in 2009, and we only reconnected through Christmas cards after... Then I saw the name of the first sender in each thread, daniel.whitaker.whitakerlegal.com. I turned to him. You were the intermediary. Daniel nodded, not looking at me. Your father didn't trust that Veronica wasn't monitoring his main accounts, so he set up a secure email and had me forward your messages. You thought you were emailing me with updates in case something happened and my father asked. You didn't know I was sending them directly to him. My hands shook as I opened the first email. From nora.bennett.email.com to daniel.whitaker.whitakerlegal.com. Date January 4th, 2013. Subject, just checking in. Hi, Daniel. I know this is probably weird, but I wanted someone to know I got the promotion. Dad probably won't ask, and that's okay. But in case he ever does, I'm senior marketing coordinator now, youngest in company history. I wish I could tell him myself. Nora. Below it, a response I'd never seen. From gb.private.2012@protonmail.com to daniel.whitaker.whitakerlegal.com. Date January 4th, 2013. Just checking in. Daniel. Make sure her trust gets an extra $25K this quarter. Mark it as a dividend distribution. And send flowers to her office tomorrow. The card should say, Congratulations on making history. Sign it, A Proud Observer. She'll think it's from corporate. Let her. G. Graham. I scrolled through more. Every email I'd sent to Daniel over the past 12 years, updates about my career, my life, my struggles, had been forwarded to my father, and every single one had a response. A trust deposit, an anonymous gift, flowers sent to my apartment when I'd mentioned feeling lonely, the coffee maker that mysteriously appeared at my door after I'd complained about bad office coffee, the donation made in my name to the literacy charity I'd mentioned supporting, the scholarship fund that paid off my student loans, which I thought came from my company's benefits program. All of it, every single gesture I'd attributed to coincidence or luck. It was him. Why didn't you tell me? My voice cracked. He made me promise. He said if you knew, you'd either confront Veronica and put yourself at risk, or you'd feel guilty about accepting help. He wanted you to build your life on your own terms, without the weight of his illness or his money influencing your choices. I opened another email, this one from 2019. From nora.bennett.email.com to daniel.whitaker.whitakerlegal.com. Date August 15th, 2019. Subject, I saw him today. Daniel, I saw Dad at the East Side Medical Center. I was there for a friend's appointment and he was in the oncology wing. He looked so thin. He didn't see me. I wanted to go to him, but Veronica was there and I just couldn't face her telling me I wasn't welcome. Should I try to reach out? Would he even want to hear from me? Nora. My father's response was marked, Do Not Forward, Journal Entry. She saw me today. She wanted to come over, I could see it in her face, but Veronica was hovering and I couldn't risk it. 6 more months. The investigators need 6 more months to document everything. Then I can stop pretending. Then I can tell her the truth.
God, I hope I have 6 more months. The date on that entry, August 15th, 2019. He died March 11th, 2024. He'd held on for 4.5 more years.
At the bottom of the email folder was a video file, norafinalmessage.mp4. Timestamp, March 5th, 2024, 6 days before he died. Daniel stood. I'll give you privacy. Stay. I needed him there, needed someone to anchor me to reality. I double-clicked the file. My father's face filled the screen. He was in bed this time, not the conference room. Hospital gown, IV line. The cancer had won, but his eyes were still sharp. Hi, sweetheart. His voice was weaker than in the lawyer's video, but clearer, more present. If you're watching this, it means everything went according to plan. Veronica showed her true colors, Daniel shared the evidence, and you finally know the truth. He paused, struggling with breath. I need you to understand why I did this. When I met Veronica, I was lonely. Your mother had been gone for 8 years, and I was drowning in work. Veronica was charming, attentive. She seemed like a partner. Another pause, longer this time. By the time I realized what she was, you were already pulling away, and I made the hardest decision of my life. I let you go. I let you believe I chose her over you because I needed you safe while I built a case. Tears ran down his face. But Nora, sweetheart, every day without you was agony, watching you from a distance, celebrating your successes in secret, pretending I didn't care when I cared more than anything. It nearly broke me. He lifted a piece of paper, my college graduation photo. I kept this next to my bed. Every hospital stay, every treatment, every night I thought might be my last. You were the last thing I saw before sleeping, and the first thing I saw waking up. He set it down, his hands trembling. I know you probably hate me. You should. I chose justice over presence. I chose protecting you over holding you. But I need you to know, not a single day passed where I wasn't your father, where I wasn't proud, where I wasn't loving you with everything I had. The camera shook as someone adjusted it, probably a nurse. There's something else in this storage unit. Bottom drawer of the middle filing cabinet. It's labeled Future. Open it after you finish this video. He looked directly into the camera, directly at me. I love you, Nora Elizabeth Bennett. I have loved you every moment of your life, and if there's anything after this, any heaven or next life or cosmic energy, I will spend it making up for the years I couldn't say it out loud. His eyes closed. Be happy, sweetheart. Be fierce. Be everything you already are. The video ended. I sat in silence for a long moment, then moved to the filing cabinet. The drawer labeled Future opened smoothly. Inside was a single sealed envelope. I opened it. Inside were 2 things: a letter of recommendation from Graham Bennett to the board of directors at Bennett Logistics Holdings, nominating me for Chief Executive Officer. It was dated 3 weeks before his death, notarized and witnessed. And a handwritten note. Nora, the company is yours if you want it, not because you're my daughter, because you earned it. You built a career without using my name. You innovated, you led, you proved yourself in an industry that tried to define you by whose daughter you were. Veronica thought Bennett Logistics would be her retirement plan. She forgot that the company belongs to people who build things. If you don't want it, that's okay too. Sell it, transform it, burn it down and start something new. Whatever you choose, know this: you were always the legacy I was most proud of. Love, Dad. Daniel was reading over my shoulder. The board meets next week, he said quietly. I folded the letter carefully. Then I guess I should prepare a presentation. The Bennett Logistics Holdings boardroom sat on the 42nd floor of a downtown Seattle high-rise. I'd never been inside. For 15 years, I'd worked in the industry my father built, deliberately avoiding this building, this company, this legacy. I made my own way at Harborline Dynamics, earning promotions through strategy and execution, never mentioning whose daughter I was. Now, 7 days after his funeral, I stood outside the frosted glass doors, holding my father's letter of recommendation. Daniel adjusted his tie beside me. "You ready?" I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. The doors opened. 12 board members sat around an ebony conference table. I recognized half of them from industry conferences. The other half I knew from research. Old guard, loyal to my father, deeply suspicious of Veronica's influence. At the head of the table sat Marcus Chen, CFO and interim CEO. He stood when I entered. "Ms. Bennett, thank you for coming. Thank you for seeing me on short notice." Veronica wasn't there. According to Daniel, she'd been strongly advised by her new attorney to avoid any Bennett Logistics business pending the investigation. Marcus gestured to a seat. "We've reviewed your father's recommendation. It's unprecedented." "So was his death," I replied, settling into the chair. A woman to my left, Jennifer Park, head of operations, leaned forward. "With respect, Ms. Bennett, you have no experience running a logistics company of this scale. Harborline Dynamics is impressive, but Bennett Holdings operates in 32 countries with annual revenue exceeding $12 billion. She wasn't wrong. "You're right," I said. "I've never run a company this size, but I've spent 8 years optimizing supply chains, negotiating international contracts, and building brand infrastructure in an industry that actively tried to keep me out. I did it without my father's name, without his connections, without anything except my work." I pulled out a tablet. 3 years ago, Bennett Holdings lost a major contract with Cascadia Retail Group. I'm the one who won it for Harborline Dynamics. Last year, when the Port of Vancouver strike threatened to shut down West Coast operations, I'm the one who found alternative routing that saved $17 million in costs that would have hit Bennett Holdings hardest. I swiped through a presentation I'd built over the past 3 days. "I've been competing against this company my entire career. I know every weakness in your Pacific Northwest operations. I know which contracts are underperforming. I know which executives are looking at retirement and which territories are vulnerable to competition." Marcus's expression shifted from skepticism to interest. "I also know," I continued, "that Veronica Voss has been positioning her nephew, Blake Morrison, for a leadership role. Blake, who has an MBA from a mediocre program and 2 years of experience in middle management at a company that went bankrupt." Jennifer nodded slowly. "She's been pushing for his appointment to VP of Strategic Initiatives." "Strategic Initiatives," I repeated, "a position she invented 3 months ago that would give her family control over acquisition decisions." Silence around the table. "My father didn't just leave me this company as inheritance. He left it to me because he knew what Veronica was planning. She wasn't content with his money. She wanted his legacy. She wanted to hollow out Bennett Logistics and sell it piece by piece to competitors." I pulled out another document, one of the investigative reports. "This is a communication between Veronica and Harold Trent, CEO of Northern Freight Systems, your biggest competitor. Graham knew, and he spent 3 years making sure she never got the chance." Jennifer spoke first. "When can you start?" "I found Veronica at the house, my father's house, 3 days after the board vote. She was packing. The scene should have been pathetic. A woman loading designer luggage into a Range Rover. Her empire collapsed, her plans destroyed. Instead, she looked defiant. Come to gloat? She didn't look up from the suitcase. Come to talk. She laughed, bitter and sharp. Nothing to talk about. You won. Congratulations. I leaned against the doorframe of what used to be my childhood home. Veronica had redecorated everything. Not a trace of my mother remained. Not a photo of me in sight. "The DA offered you a deal," I said. That made her pause. "What deal?" "Full cooperation, testimony against Richard Valdez, and documentation of the conservatorship scheme. In exchange, probation and restitution instead of prison time." She zipped the suitcase violently. "Why would you care?" "Because my father cared." I pulled out one more document from the storage unit, one I hadn't shown Daniel. "This is a letter he wrote to the prosecutor. It was in a sealed envelope marked, 'Only open if Veronica faces criminal charges.'" I held it out. She stared at it like it might bite her. "He asks for leniency," I said quietly. "He explains that while you manipulated him, isolated my daughter, and committed fraud, he believes you're also a victim of Richard, of your own desperation, of a system that makes women feel like they need to secure their future through men." Veronica's hands shook as she took the letter. "I don't understand." Her voice cracked. "Why would he, after everything?" "Because he loved you once, before the manipulation, before the lies. He remembered the women he married, and he didn't want to destroy her. He wanted accountability, not revenge." She opened the letter, reading it with tears streaming down her face. "There's a condition," I added. "The leniency only applies if you agree to therapy, full financial restitution, and complete severance from Bennett family assets. You take the deal, serve probation, and rebuild your life away from us." "And if I refuse?" "Then the full weight of the evidence lands on you. Wire fraud, elder abuse, financial exploitation. You're looking at 8 to 15 years. She sank onto the bed, letter clutched in her hands. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered. "At first, I just wanted security. Then Richard convinced me I deserved more. Then it became about winning, about proving I could outmaneuver everyone." "You almost did," I admitted, "if my father hadn't been 10 steps ahead." She looked up at me, mascara streaking her face. "Do you hate me?" I considered that. "No," I said finally. "I hate what you did. I hate the years you stole. But hating you, that would give you power you don't deserve." I moved toward the door, then paused. "My father left you $500,000. It's more than you deserve, but it's enough to start over, somewhere else, away from Seattle, away from Richard, away from schemes and shortcuts." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," I said, "someone once told me that the best revenge isn't destruction, it's becoming so successful that their betrayal becomes irrelevant." I started down the hallway. "Nora." I turned. "I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I am sorry." I nodded once. "Take the deal, Veronica. Let this be the end." I left her there, surrounded by packed bags and the ruins of her plan. 30 minutes later, Daniel called. She signed the cooperation agreement. "Good," I said, looking out at the Seattle skyline from my new office, my father's office. "Now what?" Daniel asked. I smiled. "Now I build something that lasts."
3 months later, I stood in the storage unit one last time. I'd moved most of the contents to my apartment. The photographs now covered my office wall. The journals sat on my bookshelf. The filing cabinets were being digitized and archived. But I'd left one thing untouched. The desk. His desk. On it sat a framed photo I'd placed there, my father and me when I was 7, before he was Graham Bennett the business titan, when he was just Dad. I set down my own journal beside his. In it, I'd written my first entry as CEO of Bennett Logistics Holdings. Day 1. I'm terrified. I'm overwhelmed. I have no idea if I'm ready for this, but I'm doing it anyway, just like you taught me, Dad. Just like you did when you started with nothing. You spent your last years protecting me from a distance. Now I'll spend mine building on what you created, making sure your company, your legacy, and your lessons live on.
I won't do it from the shadows, though. I'm going to do it in full view, with your name and mine together. Bennett and Bennett Logistics Holdings. Has a nice ring to it, don't you think? I locked the storage unit for the last time and handed the key to Daniel. Hold on to this, I said, just in case I need to remember where I came from. He pocketed it. Your father would be proud. Yeah, I said, looking back at the orange door one last time. I think he would be. If you loved this story of family, betrayal, and justice, hit that like button and subscribe for more revenge tales that prove the truth always finds a way. Drop a comment telling me, would you have taken the deal or sent Veronica to prison? And if you want to hear what happened to Richard Valdez, that's a story for part 2. See you in the next one.